Does that make sense? So this is I say this because the result of having to prove that it's love a lot of times is bragging. Love does not brag. Love does not self-display. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. Yeah, look, I did this. So what? William Barclay says this. He says that true love will be far more impressed with its own unworthiness than its own merit. I love that. Love does not brag. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? I'm telling you, this is a different aspect. Seriously, when have I asked in a sermon any questions? But I want you to know. Does that make sense? I mean, really. Yeah. 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 As love is perfected in us, fear is cast out. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. You know, in the early church, this is how their gatherings looked, don't you? Except they were more closed in, they were more seated together. But in the early church, their messages were more conversational. I'm just saying, you know why? Because they cared less about pomp and circumstance and more that you were equipped with what you needed. Does that make sense? So, arrogant. Next one. Agape is not arrogant. This is the word phuseo. And I'm going to hang out here for a second. The word phuseo literally means to inflate or to blow up with air. Literally, that's what it means. To inflate or to blow up with air. To bear oneself up on high. It speaks of a self-inflated view of one's importance. Or of an overinflated view. The idea is that it makes one bigger than it actually is. If you can picture a bullfrog's defense mechanism, you ever seen that? It gets nervous and I don't know if that's how it sounds. I don't know. Does that make sense? You see that's what it does when it does that is phuseo. That is the word here that's translated arrogant. Real quick, it's in another passage in the same book, 1 Corinthians chapter 8. Verse 1, now concerning things sacrificed to idols, we know that we have all knowledge. But then he says this, knowledge makes arrogant. New King James says knowledge puffs up. The word puffs up is the essence of this word. Knowledge puffs up. Love is not puffed up. Love is not full of itself. Love is not bigger than it does not portray something bigger than it actually is. Does that make sense? But look at what 1 Corinthians 8:1 says. Knowledge makes arrogant. Knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. So literally, that word edify is the word oikodomeo. And it literally means to build a house. I love this. Arrogance is puffed up. Love does not puff up, it builds up. There's the difference. That's this word. It's not arrogant. It's edifying. Arrogant people do not edify. Arrogant people are the ones that they look bigger than everyone else around them, and they desire attention, and does that make sense? Arrogant people are the ones that make you feel like, you ever been around people that you just always feel like you don't measure up? You ever been around people like that? You just feel like you don't measure up? Guess what? They're puffed up. Now, I don't know if it's intentional, but I can tell whether it's intentional or not, that's not love. Now, a lot of times I have to say, is that how they're making me feel, or is that just something in me the Lord's weeding out? But love builds up. It does not puff up. It edifies. It literally builds the house. In fact, another translation of that word edify, I love this, is to rebuild, to repair, to establish a foundation. Love repairs. Wow. Love repairs. Love restores. Agape repairs. I got to be careful here. I had a friend of mine that had a message on holy caulk. You know, like the caulk gun? He brought a caulk gun. And he talked about how when there's cracks in the windows and there's spaces and chunks and holes missing, what do you do? What do you do to seal something up? You caulk it. He said that's how we should be with love. We should make up the difference in each other. Whoa. We should think about that. Love makes up the difference in other people. Love edifies. It's not arrogant. It's not puffed up. It edifies. Love builds up. How different would it be? How different would our culture be if instead of nitpicking and pointing out everyone's faults, we desired to make up the difference? Are you kidding me? Can you imagine a community where people actually desired to make up the difference, where you didn't nitpick somebody because they were at fault or because they failed or because they blew it or because maybe they were grouchy, maybe there's a lack of love in them. So instead of getting on the phone and talking about them and how unloving they were, we edify. We build up. We fill in the gaps. How would our homes be different if we act that way towards each other? I mean, really, let's just start there, because there's no point putting it out in the world if we can't do it at home. Mothers, hopefully, I'm not talking to anybody here, but I know of mothers whose fathers, to be honest, they're married to people that are just not all that great. They got to do a lot of raising of the kids themselves. One of the biggest mistakes they make is they make sure that their kids know about their daddy's faults. You hearing me? Fathers? Come on. Does that make sense what I'm saying? That's not love. Well, but you don't know how they treat. No, I know that. But love edifies. It does not tear down. In fact, it's a very arrogant thing. It's a very arrogant thing to call attention to other people's faults, because in converse, you're setting yourself above that person. But when it comes to your faults, well, they just don't understand me. That's what's here, guys. Can you imagine God doing that? I mean, really, what did we just say? There is therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. Man, I want to be a father where my family can say, there is therefore now no condemnation in the Todd household. Really? Does that make sense what I'm saying? There's therefore now no condemnation at First Church of the Nazarene, that wellspring. There's therefore now no condemnation. Wow. Because to do otherwise is to be arrogant and to exalt yourself. Really. How are we doing? All right, let me see if I can get something better. So agape is not arrogant. The next one, agape is not disrespectful, is the word I have here. It says here, act in the New American Standard, it says, love does not act unbecomingly. The word here, I chose the word disrespectful for just because it kind of captures the essence of this word. Askemoneo, to act rudely, disgracefully, dishonorably, or discourteously towards someone. The essence of this word is to act in a way that is ugly or deformed. The root word, this is a verb, but the noun or the adjective actually of this word, askemaneo, the noun actually means that which is ugly and deformed. So it's describing behavior that makes you look ugly and it's describing ugly behavior. There was a phrase down in North Carolina. They said that a lot. Well, that's just ugly. Well, that's just ugly. And we kind of picked it up. I don't know if it was just North Carolina, but that's where I first heard it. Well, you're acting ugly. You're acting ugly. You're acting ugly. That's this word, acting ugly. Well, what does that mean? What are the specifics of that? Well, it's ugly. Can you imagine Jesus acting ugly? No. What if something doesn't go your way? Man, listen. The Lord saved me in the past month from acting really ugly. He's getting me better. And I'm learning, but there have been times that I've pushed the ugly button. I bordered it. Things happen. Usually it's in a store or something like, where, I don't know, where something's just unreasonable. Does that make sense? I had a little ugly test yesterday, didn't I? Yeah. I think I passed. I don't think I was ugly. But I felt ugly on the inside. Really, have you ever had one of those servers that just, they woke up on the wrong side of the bed and they just decided that they didn't care about tips that day? See, love does not respond in an ugly manner to ugliness. It doesn't matter how people treat you. Well, I don't feel this. Let's go back. Agape is a verb, not a feeling. So this word here literally is to act ugly. This would include anything that degrades, dehumanizes, or humiliates. I don't know what humiliate is. That's the word there. Humiliate. I just made that word up. Humiliate somebody. Yeah, humiliates. It should be. I'm going to check that later. Listen, we can disagree passionately and adamantly, but the minute we stoop to devalue another person is the minute we have become wrong, even though we may be right. Does that make sense? Love is not ugly. I think that's, and looking, man, I don't mean to beat this horse, but in looking at some of the videos of the Drag Queen Story Hour and the response of the religious self-righteous that were there, I think the thing that irked me the most is how ugly they made Jesus look. Or made how ugly they were when they represented him. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? When they said they represented him. Yeah, they didn't make him look that. Because people didn't know. Because here's the thing. Do you know lost people, they know that's not Jesus? Do you know the world, when we misrepresent Christ, do you know they know that's not who Jesus is? Do you know they know that? They have that common sense. That's not who Jesus is. You represent somebody, but it's not Jesus. They know that. Love does not behave ugly. I don't care what someone does to you. It does not give you the right to dehumanize them or demonize them or devalue them or be disrespectful and dishonoring. Does that make sense? Listen, there's still a soul for whom Christ died. That makes their soul one of the most precious things in the universe, and you need to treat it as such. Regardless what they do. They may be ugly, but you can't be as a believer. My dad had this saying, there's many sayings my dad had that stuck with me. This one, I hear him say it still over and over and over. A Christian is never deliberately rude under any circumstances. You say, well, that means you're never rude? No, listen, a Christian is never deliberately rude. I understand we fail. I understand that. But you know what we do when we fail? We go back and make it right. If you were ugly to someone, okay, you're human. Love will go back and make it right. Love will go back and say, you know what? Man, I want to imitate Christ, and that's not how Christ behaves. I guarantee you, first of all, if the Lord begins to deal with you about doing that, the enemy's going to come in and say all these things they're going to think about you. But I guarantee you, you go back, it doesn't matter how ugly you were, you go back and apologize and don't defend your behavior. Ugliness doesn't, we can't defend ugliness. But you go back and apologize and just, who cares if you were at fault or not? You were at fault for being ugly. So you go back and apologize. I shouldn't have acted that way. I want to be like Jesus, and that wasn't him. I guarantee you, you will go up in respect in that person's eyes immensely. Because people are forgiving in many cases. Does that make sense what I'm saying? What they don't forgive is the arrogance and the denial and the self-justification and the entitlement. But you come contritely, I shouldn't have acted that way. And watch what happens. It's a good way to restore a witness. Does that make sense? Disrespectful. Okay. How are we? Should I go on? Okay. I say that because, there's three more. I don't know if we'll get through all three here. Love is not self-seeking. Agape is not self-seeking. Do you see how these are connected? Is this helpful to anyone? They really do. They flow into each other here. Agape is not self-seeking. This phrase, where is it? In verse 4, or is it in verse 5? It does not seek its own. Does not act it does not seek its own. It's verse 5. Does not act unbecomingly, does not seek its own. That word is interesting. The word seek, it's two words. Seek is the word zeteo, and its own is the word hoto or hotal. Zeteo means to crave, demand, strive after, aim at, endeavor, or require, or seek to find. Agape is not self-seeking. Hotu or hotu identifies or refers to what it is you're craving, or you're seeking, or you're endeavoring for. So, zeteo hotu, love is not self. Hotu means himself, herself, itself, themself. Right? Zeteo means to strive after. So you put them two together, to strive after yourself, to seek after yourself, to crave yourself. The word zeteo is the word Jesus uses in, Luke 19:10, when he says the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. That word seek is crave after. The Son of Jesus said, I crave those who are lost. This here says love does not crave itself. Love does not endeavor for itself. Love does not require itself. Wow. Man, I'm thinking of even in the church right now, there are teachings going around that promote self. Jen, you just posted an article. I've not read, I think you commented on an article about a book. I've not read the book. But it was like, woman wash your face, or girl wash your face, woman wash your face. That's I guess my version of it. Woman wash your face. Girl, I haven't read it, so I can't, but I know the woman that was rebutting it said girl wash feet. That was a powerful rebuttal. I've not read the other, but if it's true that this was teaching women, you got to put yourself first. I don't care how Christian that author says she is. That's not God. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I'm not trying to accuse. I'm not saying she doesn't love the Lord. I'm just saying she's wrong in that. If that's what she's teaching, you got to put self first. You got to look out for number one. Listen, that's not Jesus. That's what the enemy does. Do you know the DNA of sin is self? This is the essence of everything that contradicts who Jesus said we are to be. Love does not crave itself. Love does not desire. itself. Love is not self-seeking. Can you imagine? Being in very essence God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing. Made himself nothing. Made himself nothing. How was he able to do that? Because he knew who he was in his Father. Because identity was not based on what he said he was. Identity is based on what the Father says we are. So you don't put, love does not crave after itself. Does that make sense? All right, cool. What we got here? Yeah, guys, it goes, listen, love is not egocentric. This flies in the face of our American culture, even teaching in the church. And we just quoted this verse. Set your mind on things above. Set your mind on things above. Yeah. Love does not seek itself. Yeah. Love is not, man. Okay, these next two. How we doing? We doing okay? Okay. Let's get through these. Agape is not easily angered. The Greek word paroxuno literally means quickly moved to anger, irritation, or defense. The idea here is really a continuation of the lack of patience. Go back to patience. Love is patient. Love is a prolonged restraint of emotion, which means it's not easily angered. Love is not, the idea is it describes someone who gets angry at the drop of a hat, has bursts or outbursts of rage. Have you ever had those people that you just had to walk on eggshells around? That you didn't know how they were going to respond, and if you just said something wrong, it could set them off. Does that yeah. Love doesn't do that. Love doesn't, or you had to walk on eggshells around them because you didn't know if they were going to get angry. Or you had to walk on eggshells around them because the least little thing, whether you meant it or not, could cause them to have such hurt feelings. Does that make sense? That's not love either. It's not just angered. Paroxuno means quickly moved to irritation, anger, or offense. It's one of those three. So love is not quickly angered. Love is not easily offended. Love, listen to me, love doesn't get its feelings hurt. It just doesn't. Why? Because love is a verb, not a feeling. Oh, there are feelings that come from it, but love itself does not get its feelings hurt. Well, they walked by me and did not even acknowledge me. I was trying to talk to them, and I don't know. You know what I'm talking about? That's not love, guys. In fact, the degree, I'm going to say this. The degree to which you can be offended testifies greatly to the degree to which you need to grow up in your love. I'm going to say that again, and if anybody gets offended, you just don't prove my point here. The degree to which you can be offended testifies greatly to the degree that still the Lord needs to mature you in this. Does that make sense? And that's not listen, I'm not trying to be rude, and I'm not. But on the other hand, if we're talking about love, love is not easily offended. Can you imagine Jesus getting offended like that? Can you imagine Jesus walking around with his feelings on his sleeve? Pharisees. Man, they didn't even acknowledge. They completely took what I did out of context. They didn't even, I did this. Or 10 lepers. Only one of them came back. I guess 9 of them don't care. Can you imagine Jesus taking that attitude? I mean, really? What's wrong, Jesus? 9 lepers didn't say thank you. Really? Come on. 9 lepers. Really? Here's the thing. I'd be a little something about that. I mean, really. You just healed 10 lepers, and only one of them comes back to say thank you? I would snatch their healing away. All right, 9. Spots. I'm just saying. Sores. Teach you not to say thank you to me. Ha-ha! Now are you grateful? Come on. Listen, I'd have done a whole lot worse to the Pharisees. That's just me. That's why I'm becoming Jesus. I'm not Jesus. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I want to be him. And if I want to be him, then that means if I can't imagine him doing it, I shouldn't be doing it either. I can't imagine Jesus getting bent out of shape because someone didn't give him recognition. I can't imagine Jesus getting bent out of shape because someone disagreed with what he was saying. You kidding me? You know why? He was not easily offended. I mean, good night. He died the most brutal death. Something he didn't even do. It was the very people that were nailing him to the cross. They were why he was up there to begin with. He was in their place. They should have been there. I should have been there. And you know what he did? Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. You know what that is? That's making up the difference. Come on. That's making up the difference in somebody. Yeah, help me, Lord. Wow. Love is not easily angered. Listen, true agape is not easily offended. So, let me say this. If you're around people who are easily offended, don't respond by being easily offended. How many you don't think you struggle with getting easily offended, but you struggle with getting offended by those who are easily offended? Does that make sense what I'm saying? If you're not easily offended, then don't be offended by those who are offended, even if it's easily. Love makes up the difference. Listen, I saw my dad. I saw my dad treated like a dog. I saw my dad and heard my dad talked about like a dog by people that were leaders in the church. But I never remember him bashing them. I always remember him saying things like, they think they're doing what's right. They're doing what they think is right. Guess what? I'm their pastor also. When they were sick, he was there. When they had crisis, he was there. Wow. He was very much like Jesus, like that. I want to be that way. All right. So this helps. The next one, the last one, and agape does not keep a record of wrongs. There's two words here in the Greek. The phrase is agape does not take into account wrongs suffered. That's the phrase in the New American Standard Version. Who has the New King James Version? What's it say? It's different. That's all right. How many have something that says something different? I want you to know what we're talking about. Agape does not, verse 5, last part of it. Thinks no evil. That's the word, yeah. Agape thinks no evil. That's one of the ways it's translated. And so the two words here, and that's what I was looking for, because I knew the New King James said something else. The NAS says, does not take into account wrongs suffered. That's really the essence of what it's saying. thinks no evil, meaning agape does not consider and hold and ponder the wrongs that were done to it. Agape does not nurse its